Hello everyone, welcome to Monday morning, and this is the beginning of a phenomenal week. I can tell you what, you've probably heard the buzz from this month's keynote. We aired it last week in its entirety. This week we're bringing it to you in daily 15-minute mentorship moments. You don't want to miss a single piece of this interview with Bill Bartmann. He's probably single-handedly one of the most influential people that has impacted my life and how I think and why we are sitting here where we are today with Mentorfish and why we are positioned to go to where we want to go with Mentorfish. And his way of thinking is just so huge. If you saw the interview, you already know what I'm talking about, and you need to hear this all again. If you watch the interview, this is all going to be stuff you want to hear again this week. It's a powerful week. It's so powerful, as a matter of fact, that we're not even going to do questions of the day this week because the interview went just a pinch long, and I want to make sure you get all the content that Bill had to share, because his experiences and his accolades and his accomplishments are ones that very few people ever experience. So I wanted to share all of it. He gets into a lot of powerful stuff today that you won't want to miss. Enjoy Bill today. You will not want to miss a single part of it. Get your pen ready if you're not driving, of course, and be prepared to be impacted today. And this is just the beginning. Join us every day this week. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. God bless you. Bill has done so many things, and he's going to share a lot of the story with you all today. But I also want to talk about, too, because we reconnected years later after I had taken a lot of what you have taught me, some of my other mentors that you know, and grew our business and began to speak and accomplish some success there. And then because of your success, you found yourself on the speaking circuit, too. And I think at that time we bumped back into each other in the Tulsa International Airport. We were both flying out to our deals, and Bill found out I was traveling. So we ended up, long story short, we had this wonderful setup where I got to go along with him and almost kind of coach and mentor him in the speaking industry. And then I got to be around him and pick his brain and listen and see how he operated. And it was in that, I think it was about a two and a half year period that we were on the road together, traveled together, spoke together, that you helped me strengthen and enlarge the vision I had for serving people. So I just wanted to connect the dots for them, that they know that we wouldn't even be sitting here and they wouldn't even be here if it hadn't been for some of the things that you impacted in me in my life.
Well, you're being modest and humble, which is one of your drawbacks, and we have to work on that. But literally, the other truth of that is, you knew I was now being put in a position where I was going to go have to give speeches and seminars and teach people how to do some things, and I really wasn't good at the communication part. I would like to think humbly I've got some good content, that I know some stuff. I've enjoyed some great successes in life. I've had some cataclysmic failures also. But really, both of those are attributes. Yeah. Those are good things to teach people how to be successful and how to deal with failure. But sadly, I didn't know how to communicate it. I mean, so you have all this stuff inside you, and everybody watching this show, every single one of us, we have stuff inside of us. We have talent, we have skill, we have ability, we have experience, we have great value, and most of us don't think we do, or we don't know how to get it out. Yeah. I didn't know that I really did, but I knew darn well I didn't know how to get it out. And that's when you told me what you did for a living, and when you said, and I help people communicate. I thought, oh, thank you, Jesus. You know, the light goes on. Where have you been? And nothing happens by accident. It just does not happen by accident. You showing up in that airport, us having that conversation, you remembering me from 10 or so years earlier, and then telling me what it is you do at a moment when I know that's what I need more than anything else in the whole world. I need somebody to just show me and teach me and tutor me, not on the content, because I've got the content, but how to communicate the content. And so you went with me, and you were so kind. We spent like 22 days up in Canada, and for everybody who doesn't know the rest of the story, I went to Canada to practice this because I knew it was going to be really bad. I mean, I did. I knew I was so bad at it. It was kind of like a comedian going to Lubbock to practice their material. Yeah. You know, if it gets a good laugh in the audience in Lubbock, then you use
we'll go somewhere else with it.
Yeah. So we went to Canada, my theory being that if it really bombs, nobody up there knows me, and I won't be embarrassed. Sure enough, I mean, you will be testament to this. I got up on stage and I did some stuff that was just put the audience to sleep. It just absolutely had them snoring. And you know, no matter how good the content was, if you can't get it to them, if they aren't able to receive what it is you're offering, that's your fault. And you babysat me and bludgeoned me on occasion. You did both. to get me to move my hands, get me to move my arms. Because when Keith met me, I would give a speech and it looked like, yeah, my name is Bill and I am here to talk to you today. And you finally got me to go animated. So if at any point in time in this conversation I swat you with something, it's your fault.
And you're going to feel the connection in this communication now because he's so connected to the audiences. He's phenomenal. And he wasn't near as he's being very gracious to me as well. But the long, the short of it is, we're here together today, and you're the highlight of our year. And I know you've got some very exciting things going on in your life right now. I know you just released your autobiography, and I can't wait to hear more about that. But I want to back them up because I know you very well. I've shared some stories about what you've taught me throughout the years. But I want you to kind of give us the laser version, even from the beginning, all the way back from where you came from. Don't give us the whole autobiography because they're going to want to get it. They're going to want to get it. We only have 50 to 60 minutes here.
Don't tell them the ending.
Right? Yeah, don't tell them the ending.
Make them buy the book.
But man, you're such an inspiration, and you've experienced so much. Let's just talk about the story. I told you this would be just a conversation between you. Let's just tell the story, and then as things go, I want to point out a few things that I remember learning from you and make sure they get it. I'm sure they will, but let's hear the story because it's phenomenal.
Well, and I don't want to go too far back, but I don't want to leave out anything that could be relevant or important. And it's all kind of started at the beginning. I'm one of 8 kids. My dad is a janitor. My mom cleaned houses for a living. So we were poor. Now, some people say, yeah, but we didn't know we were poor. No, we knew. We knew. I mean, we were that poor. We weren't dumb. We were poor, and we knew it. And I mean, we lived on government foodstuffs commodity program. That's when the government would give you cheese and meat and beans, lots and lots of beans. They had plenty of beans, and they'd give it to you in a cardboard box once a month. And so it's probably the most demeaning way of receiving charity. Now, us kids didn't know that part. We were just so grateful to get some food because Mom and Dad, though, they worked every single day of their life, and that's not an exaggeration. Because they worked in low-paying jobs, they couldn't take care of their bills. They were always being called by bill collectors. We had bill collectors showing up. We never owned a home. We always lived in rent houses. By the time I was 14, we had lived in 8 different rent houses, 2 of which were condemned by the city as being unfit for human habitation. So when I say we were in a poor environment, it was really poor. And fortunately, at 14, I just left home. I didn't run away. They didn't throw me out. I just left. And that kind of speaks to the dysfunctionality of our family. And I don't say that in a bad, negative, hateful way. Mom and Dad loved us as much as they knew how. They just didn't know how very well. They didn't have any parenting skills. Nobody had ever instilled it in them. And they were so busy going from pillar to post to find groceries for 8 kids, they didn't have a lot of time for hugging and kissing and caring for. And again, I don't want to sound like they were mean or abusive. They were not.
Yeah.
It was a benign neglect. They didn't have time because they were so busy trying to deal with big issues. So at 14, I left.
You left home at 14?
Yeah, went home. I lived on the street, lived under a bridge viaduct. I've lived at a John 3:16 mission. I've lived at a YMCA. Truly was homeless at 14. Finally joined a traveling carnival, did that for 2 years. From 14 to 16, I was on the road. And, and you say, well, Bill, at 14, you're not old enough. And you are if you have to.
And you just did it.
I did it without knowing it was a big deal. I did it without knowing it was hard. I did it without knowing it was unsafe. And it was unsafe. Lots of things happen in that environment, that stay with you forever. And so for 2 years, I had some really good experiences and had some really terrible experiences. And at 16, I left. 16, I finally said, I've had enough of that. And I upgraded. I joined a street gang.
Now, you got promoted to a street gang.
Yeah. See, now most people say, Bill, you're going the wrong direction. You're going from the frying pan into the fire. But for me, it was the first time in my life I actually had somebody protecting me. For the first time in my life, I had my gang members protecting me because they had this own little camaraderie of all for one for all. That's kind of corny and silly. But if you've never had that all of your life, if you've always been the runt of the litter, and I was the smallest kid in our family, the smallest kid in our neighborhood, and I got beat up almost every single day when I was growing up, for me it was a protection. And now when you're a member of a gang, you really only do 2 things, and you learn how to do both of them really, really well. I learned how to fight, and I learned how to drink. And by the time I was 17, I was an alcoholic. So you can imagine when you're a drunk and a gang member and a person who left home at 14, school is not even on the radar screen. Right. So I had spent 5.5 years in and out of high school and still never graduated. So at 17, I'm a drunk, I'm a high school dropout, I'm a gang member, I've experimented with about every kind of bad thing that you can experiment with.
Sure.
And my life is like Zeroville. I mean, it's not just bad, it's beyond bad. And fortunately for me, Kathy, my wife, we now have just this past month celebrated 40 years of marriage.
Awesome.
So when I met her when I was 14 and she was 11. So at 17, she finally convinced me I wasn't near as stupid as I thought I was. I wasn't near as bad as I thought I was, and I wasn't near as incompetent as I thought I was. No, you say, well, Bill, come on, you've been the 25th wealthiest guy in America, Harvard Business School did a case study on you, you've been National Entrepreneur of the Year, you know, you've got all these kudos, how could you ever think you were stupid? At 17, I had never heard anybody say anything nice about me.
Wow.
At 17, I had only lived all of their affirmations. I'd only lived all the people I was hanging around with version of who I was. And mostly they were as bad off as I was. And so we kind of wallowed in the same mud pie, you know, that,
Yeah, sure.
and that, you know, they say you become the 5 people you hang out with. Well, I was hanging out with 5 losers. And so I was a loser. Yeah. And I didn't believe I could ever win. I didn't think I had winning in me. I didn't think I could ever do anything. I didn't think I could be anything. I didn't think beyond the next case of beer, because there was no future. There was no tomorrow. There was no next week. There was no next month. It was just whatever instant gratification, because that's all everybody did. I became one of them. Kathy saw in me something, and I say literally, God only knows what she saw in me. She saw something that nobody else had ever seen, and she encouraged me to take the GED. Now you could have the IQ of that glass of water in front of you and probably pass the GED test. It's not very hard. It was the first test I'd ever passed in my life, and so you go, wow, maybe I'm not stupid. And I mean that intellectually and IQ-wise, because I had flunked every course I'd ever taken.
You didn't know any better at that point.
Yeah. Well, I was reading, when I was a junior the second time, Keith, I was still reading at the 5th grade level. So, I mean, I didn't have skills. I didn't learn. I didn't know. These things that people take for granted, we just don't have them. Yeah. You know, it'd be like talking to a blind person and trying to describe a color. They don't know what you're talking about. Right. Not because they're stupid. They've just never experienced. Well, I never experienced education, so I didn't have any. So with that, she also convinced me to get into college, which I did. She then talked me into getting into law school. Now this girl just doesn't quit. Yeah. And got me into college, stayed on probation for 4 years, graduated on probation, got into law school on probation, stayed on probation for 3 years, graduated.
Now I know if we had more time, there's a story to all of those. I remember when we spent time on the road, you told me you used that same mentality that has made you into who you are today to get into those things. And I know that's probably more time than we have, but I just want you guys to know there's a story on every single step of this that mirrors who you've become and what you've accomplished.
But see, every one of us have those stories. Yeah. Every one of us already have all of those things that we don't honor. And that's really probably the greatest single lesson I could give anybody, the greatest single teaching, is we're already good enough. We already have skills. We already have capacity. We already have ability. Now, maybe not rocket science, maybe not, you know, rock star, maybe not the best of breed, but good enough. Yeah. We're already good enough. Most of us think we're not good enough, and because we think we're not good enough, we don't even start. Sure. And because we don't start, we never finish. Well, you know, what I learned from Kathy is this dropout, drunk gang member was good enough. And once I became willing to believe that, then all I had to do was have a couple of successes, and one success led to another success, led to another success, led to another. And now at 65 years of age, I'm going, I can't wait for the next challenge. Yeah. You know, I wished I would have started earlier, but I can't wait for the next challenge. So life is so good.